August 1944. A chaotic field hospital clearing station in Normandy. Inside a canvas tent, rain beats down on the canvas roof, while a thick layer of mud swallows the boots of every man who enters. Blood-soaked stretchers line the floor in tight rows. Screams of agony fill the air as the wounded wait for surgical attention. Outside, exhausted medical clerks and drivers struggle to lift heavy wooden litters out of the deep mire, their muscles burning from hours of relentless labor. Amidst this scene of sheer desperation, a military chaplain sits comfortably on a dry wooden supply crate. His uniform remains perfectly clean. He slowly turns the page of his Bible, looking away from the suffering around him. He claims his holy office exempts him from manual labor. But a legendary general will soon show him exactly how much a holy office matters during a crisis of command. This is the story of what happened when a military chaplain attempted to use religious doctrine to disobey a direct order during a battlefield crisis, only to face the unyielding standard of General George S. Patton. Before we continue, make sure you subscribe to the channel. We tell the World War II stories that show when faith was forced to carry the weight of war. Corporal James "Jimmy" Miller was 21 years old and hailed from the working-class streets of Chicago. He belonged to the 9th Medical Battalion of the 9th Infantry Division. Before the draft caught up with him, Jimmy had spent his teenage years stocking shelves in a neighborhood grocery store to help his widowed mother pay the rent. He volunteered for the medics because he wanted to preserve life rather than take it. But the hedgerows of France had quickly cured him of any romantic notions about war. He had dragged shattered teenagers out of burning half-tracks under heavy artillery fire until his boots were stained permanently crimson. By August, his hands were a landscape of raw blisters, his fingers split open by the brutal friction of wet canvas and rough wood. His back throbbed with a dull, constant ache that never left him. Now, he stood in the freezing mud of the clearing station, his eyes hollow and dead with exhaustion, silently taking the crushing weight of another dying infantryman onto his shoulders. Captain Reverend Silas Thorne was 35 years old and came from a wealthy, conservative parish in Richmond, Virginia. He had entered the chaplaincy through family connections, believing his theological degree elevated him above the vulgarities of the common soldier. His ideology was built on rigid, self-serving isolation, and he frequently stated that the spirit must remain uncorrupted by the physical degradation of the battlefield. His uniform was tailored, pristine, and entirely free of dirt. He wore a crisp clerical collar that he treated as a physical shield against the horrors of the European theater. While men died yards away, Thorne remained detached, viewing the bleeding casualties as the proper concern of the lower military ranks. He kept his boots polished and sat comfortably on a dry wooden crate inside the dry tent, isolated from the grim reality of the war. The Allied campaign in northern France had reached a critical friction point by the middle of August. The rapid breakout from the Normandy beaches had left American supply lines stretched to their absolute limits. Fuel and ammunition took priority on the single-lane dirt roads, leaving field hospitals to operate with depleted staffs and minimal resources. When a sudden German counterattack hit the advancing frontline units, the influx of casualties overwhelmed the clearing stations. Medical officers were forced to make impossible choices, treating hundreds of severely wounded men in temporary canvas shelters that were never designed for long-term care. In this chaotic environment, strict adherence to peacetime regulations began to fracture under the sheer weight of human suffering. Most field commanders tolerated minor deviations from standard military protocol during these high-stress operations. They ignored unbuttoned collars, coarse language, and the informal breakdown of rank among men who were fighting just to stay alive. A clerk helping a surgeon or a driver holding a flashlight in an